Hi, Vicky. Thanks for joining us for our Book Lovers Festival.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
Good, thank you. So, what does the theme of creative resilience mean to you?
I think being creative during this really terrible time has actually helped me stay resilient. I've It's been really busy in our house. We've had myself working and juggling two jobs, and my husband also working, and two children, primary school age. So I've been supporting them with their homeschool. It's been so busy. So finding time and trying to find ways to stay resilient amongst that chaos has been quite challenging. I've been trying to think of an analogy to do a visual illustration of how it's felt for me. I feel like I've been floating in this massive bubble with a husband and two children through space, and every time someone moves, the bubble turns and we all topple on top of each other. So I think we've been trying to find ways to find space within that bubble so we can all do what we need to do and support each other without the bubble bursting and without it toppling every time that we move. So that's meant for me changing the rhythm of things. I usually get up early to write, but I've been getting up a little bit earlier. So in the wee hours, I've been writing in my dressing gown and trying to find ways to keep my writing going, even if it's little windows, 5 minutes here or an hour there. Um, Writing for me actually keeps me quite calm. So it is a bit of a mental health plan for me, which has been particularly important during this crazy time. And it's been such a terrible time for so many people. It's completely floored some industries and changed the landscape of others. I know for my illustrator in uh, Italy, who is doing one of my picture books, during their lockdown, he was unable to source any art supplies. So he literally came to a grinding halt. So that fallout for both of us means that our picture book, and for the publisher, our picture book has been pushed out into 2022. There have been so many things that have been postponed and changed, and I think just living with this perpetual uncertainty has been so difficult. So for me, normally I do a lot of face-to-face to engage with my readers and find opportunity to promote and sell my books. So at libraries and story times at bookshops, and also doing workshops with schools. So I've been unable to do any of those things. And a few of us have just pressed pause, and I was one of them. I just thought, well, I'll keep writing, but I just press pause and everything else. But this situation's just continuing for months and months and months. So it's become unviable for me to not do any of this other engagement. So I've had to really pivot and find ways to be creative, to stay resilient during this time. So that looks like that's had me on Zoom more. So I've done a lot of Zoom story times. And that's been quite fun. On Zooms, you can grab things like puppets really easily and props like this. You can sit on the floor and you've got everything easily available. It also has opened up other opportunities to connect with people overseas. So anyone can come into a Zoom story time and interstate. So it's been lovely to engage with new people through story time. I did one recently with very special kids, and that had a music therapist in one corner and myself in the other. And so we were able to sort of switch between music and story really easily to support each other and create quite a beautiful dynamic storytelling experience for children. So I think being brave during this terrible time is one way to stay resilient, is making the decision to try new things does open up opportunities. Um, and it is tricky being a creator because you're often running solo and making these decisions by yourself. So I have reached out to other creators, yourself, librarians, and uh, booksellers and teachers to see how we can work together and understand what everyone is doing and learn from each other. I think connecting with others is another way to stay resilient so that we can continue to be creative.
Wow, thanks. Um, do you feel that resilience is important in your work?
Absolutely. I think being a writer, you do have to have a thick skin. You've also got to be particularly open to feedback. It's an industry where you are collaborating with others all the time, particularly with picture books where you've got an illustrator and an author, and you then have your editor and your publisher, and there's a sales team and there's a marketing team. So all of those people have to work together to create this beautiful artwork that will eventually sit on the shelves of libraries and bookstores for children to experience artwork for the first time. So it is there's a lot of effort going into the editing and taking on board people's feedback. And I try and be very open to feedback from my writers group and from my editors. Often I can be a little bit grumpy at the time and I think, oh, I'm not sure if that's going to work, but I usually sleep on it with a fresh mind in the morning, rework my story, and it always comes out better. So it is about being open to feedback and to working together to ensure that you can transform this piece of artwork into something quite beautiful.
That's so important. Do you explore themes of resilience in your writing?
Yes, all the time. And I think resilience and creating story goes hand in hand. Often you have a character who has an obstacle or a challenge or a strong motivation that they need to overcome or they want to carry out. So in my stories, I have an echidna, for instance, in Little Puckle's song, who really longs to be able to sing, but he can't make any sound. So he tries and he tries and he tries and he tries, and that persistence builds up resilience for this poor character. And it means that the reader can connect with and have empathy or sympathy for the character. So they want to read on and they want to find out what happens to this character in the end. So in my recent release, The Lost Moustache, the main character, Frankie, she finds a moustache. Who loses a moustache? And she thinks, well, whose moustache is this? So her motivation is to continue to look and ask people, characters. She asks the Queen, is this your moustache? Me with a mo, I don't think so. So she continues to ask people through the story. And that is resilience in that she's persisting all the time to try and find an outcome. And eventually she does, but it's quite a surprising outcome. So yes, resilience is something that goes really well with storytelling and building that story so that people can connect with it. Absolutely.
Right. How has your creative work required resilience, do you think?
There's a quote that I always like to share. It goes something like, the difference between a writer and a published author is purely persistence. So I think writing and spending long hours to get a piece that is singing and is strong enough to send into a publisher and to be published requires a lot of resilience and hard work and effort. Sometimes my stories come out like honey, and that's exciting when they do because they come out almost fully formed and it doesn't take too much editing to make them come into shape. But most of my pieces, when I've got an idea or a character in mind, it require a lot of editing, and that can be torturous editing when it's not working for you. Luckily, I'm a big believer of letting a piece rest and come back to it after a few days or a few months or even a year or so, and with fresh eyes reworking the piece so you can breathe new life into it, see it from a different way, and then try and rework it. But again, you have to be very resilient to keep going back to a piece, and I think it is my love of words and language and getting them to a point where they absolutely sing and hang together in a beautiful way and sit with an illustration so it's magic for a child when they read it. I think that passion is part of the toolkit of being a resilient writer as well.
Great, thank you. Have you struggled more than usual to be creative during lockdown?
I haven't.
Maybe in other ways, not just writing?
Yeah, I haven't struggled to be creative because I've got so many ideas, I never know where to put them all. But I have had trouble carving out that space and finding enough time to continue my writing. So it has been, I actually have done a lot of writing during COVID, and luckily I've just had another new book signed with a new publisher. That's been a real boost during this period. But carving out that time amongst homeschool and juggling everything and, you know, writing in my dressing gown in the wee hours of the morning and editing over porridge with my kids and writing stories in my head when I'm walking, exercising, so trying to do things, I suppose, at the same time, which is not very mindful, but just to try and make good use of my time. So trying to find those ways and space to be able to continue writing. So it has been challenging, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time, Vicky, and congratulations on the new book signing.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
No problems. Thank you. Bye-bye.